Hello, everyone, and welcome to Ful-on, your Fulham-centric football podcast. I'm your host, Ash Woolford. Joining me today for our Nottingham Forest preview is AJ. How you doing, mate?
I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Nice to have you back. And someone we've missed for the last couple of recordings, so it's really nice to have him back. Drew, how you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I'm glad to be back with you boys. Sorry I haven't been about. Hello to everyone, our usual subscribers and any new viewers we've got.
Yeah, it's good to have you back, mate. It's good to have you back. Let's get into it and let's discuss the game that's coming up on Saturday. It's a big game, I feel, for us this weekend at Forest at home. You know, we are all aware of how fantastic Forest are doing this season. If you're a Forest fan watching this, you must be absolutely exceptionally proud of the football that your team are playing at the moment. You know, very impressed with what I've seen coming out of Forest this year. To some shock, I might add from me, you know, because we all were questioning their transfer policy and how the way they were buying players, you know, stockpiling and moving people on quickly. But you know, you can't argue with the results they're getting on the pitch in a moment, and they've managed to get some real big performances out of players, which I guess we'll talk about in a little while. You know, going into this game against Forest, AJ, are you excited about the game coming up this weekend? Because we know that, you know, the Forest the last couple of weeks, there's two different Forests we could face. There's the team that beat Brighton 7-0, and there's the team that lost 5-0 to Bournemouth. You know, what are you expecting this weekend? Are you excited about the possibility of playing them?
Yeah, Robin Hood FC versus the actual Nottingham Forest. It's going to be quite an interesting game of football. I don't know whether or not they qualify as a giant killing. I suppose with their performances this season, they would be on the upper echelon of the Robin Hood style of football, and that we would take from the rich. So fingers crossed and positive thoughts, but in reality, somewhat nervous.
Can't really argue that they're definitely up there this season. They are third in the Premier League. You know, they've got a pretty impressive record. They've only lost 5 games all season. It just happens to be that we are one of those games that they've lost when we beat them 1-0 at the City Ground early on in the season. You know, Drew, if you remember back to that game, we were all quite shocked that we managed to pull off the win at Forest. But on the day, we were actually good value for our victory. Um, you know, what are you expecting to be different come the game on Saturday?
Well, looking at the table now, I don't think we appreciated how significant that victory or unique that victory was. I mean, Forest have been fantastic. I know that there are criticisms of the fact they're not heavily reliant on possession-based football, but they've got a traditional number 9 and they've got 2 quick wingers, and yeah, it really works for them, and I'm quite pleased. The fact that they're up there, gate crashing, the usual suspects, I think more power to them. But in terms of our win there at the time, yeah, as you say, it was good value. This time, I mean, quite frankly, I wouldn't be upset if we drew, because taking 4 points off Forest this season, in the big scheme of things, when you look at everything, there probably won't be many teams that have done that. Obviously, we'll play to win, but yeah, Forest are a good side, but they're struggling with injuries themselves at the moment.
Yeah, they've also, you know, we've got to look at the fact that we've had 7 days between playing Wigan, and they've only had 3 since playing Exeter in the Cup. Absolutely ridiculous FA Cup scheduling that's played. They played a game, you know, 3 days later than everybody else, just so it can be put on TV. You know, and they had a hard game that ended up going to penalties, and I think they've even picked up a few injuries from that, and they've already got some injuries on the book. So, you know, there are a few things that do work in our favour coming into this game, but I still really, really expect a really hard game against what is actually one of the most exciting teams to watch play football this season. And as you say, Drew, you know, I'm very happy to see Forest doing what they're doing this year, because you know it is nice and it's refreshing to see a club do what they're doing. So it's great. AJ, sort of looking at this, obviously we know we made 10 changes to the Wigan game. on Saturday. I'm expecting another 10 potentially going into this game. Looking at the way that they play, we know they have two fast wingers and up front who has been absolutely superb this season. Do we change the way we play? What do you expect from us formationally, and maybe like starting lineup wise, in order for us to sort of nullify what they do really well, which is get the ball in the box and typically score from it?
I expect us to play very similar to how we did against Wigan, actually, to be quite controlling of the ball, to try and reduce their tempo, to try and put a stranglehold on their counter play where possible, and to play very creative football. With that in mind, I can probably see Willian at least getting a decent cameo in this game because he likes playing against Forest. I believe it was against Forest last season that he scored that absolutely spectacular goal, cutting in back onto his left foot and putting it into the top corner. Was that Forest that he did
It
that
was 2 years
against?
ago, but yeah, it was 2 years ago, but yeah,
Two,
yeah,
two
Forest.
years
Yeah.
ago even, but yeah, it was a spectacular sight. But his connection to Forest through the owner, giving him a free holiday to Greece before eventually signing to us, and then actually signing for Olympiacos later on, is an interesting one. So there's a bit of back and forth there between Willian and the Forest owner, as well as Forest signing pretty much every transfer target we had over the previous two windows. It's an interesting fight between the two sides, and I think we're going to have to go at it in a very controlling manner. If we try and go gun for gun, we're going to lose because we don't have the same guns as they do.
Yeah, often we usually, when we do these match previews, right, we like to do players to watch on both sides. But I think we need to do a bit more of a deep dive into this Forest squad, as it were, and look at some of the
Mm.
players that are really, some might say overachieving, and in some cases it is overachieving. 100% is, because their stats this season don't look anything like the rest of their career do. But they have some really dangerous players that are really, really good and like nice to watch on the eye. We all know from his time at Fulham, um, how good Nico Williams is. We all really liked him. We all wanted to sign him when he ended up going to Forest, as it was. He's
Yep.
doing exceptionally well for Forest at the moment. They have some really, really good players that they brought in. They've got Morato, they got Mura, they got Olaena, who we know who
Yep.
is probably performing above even the level that we saw. And when he played for Fulham, he played exceptionally well for Fulham. He was one of that year he was at Fulham. He was probably one of our best performers week in, week out, despite the dead weight of a manager he had sort of given him the tactics to play that season.
Mm.
And then when you look at that Forest squad, you look at Morgan Gibbs White, you look at you look at them players and you think, wow, that they've got them playing a level that they've never played at before, and they've just managed to push on again. We're not even talking about Chris Woods, who's having the summer of the season. Like, literally, I don't even know where this season's coming from Chris Woods, because he's never played like it is in the past. You know, do we put that, Drew? Would you put that down to Nuno as a manager? Would you put it down to the tactics he's playing, or would you just put it down that it's one of those things for them this season where everyone's hit form, and it's just meant that they can play the football that they want to play, and at a level where they're not having to bring in 30 players to do it. They just rely on the squad they already have. They're playing excellent football with it.
I mean, there is the lightning in a bottle argument that it's just all fallen into place. They've bought so many players, inevitably they'd find a winning formula.
Mm.
With regards to Chris Wood, I think that's a little bit harsh. No one's going to confuse him with the most skillful striker, but he knows what he's good at, and he doesn't try to do things that he's not good at. I mean, that sounds incredibly obvious statement to make, but you boys are probably too young. But many, many moons ago, Arsenal had a forward called Alan Smith, who came to fame at Leicester City as Gary Lineker's strike partner. But one season at Arsenal, after not doing too much, he suddenly caught fire. They played with wingers and they used to get the ball into the box. And say what you want about Chris Woods. He has knocked Chris Wood. He has knocked about a bit. He didn't do much at Newcastle, but he has got quite a bit of Premiership experience. And sometimes it just takes players time to step up and acclimatise to their sort of the new level they're playing at. And that may have just happened with him. He benefits massively from the wingers they've got. They get a lot of balls into the box. So it could be a combination of things. I mean, he's putting his experience to good use. He's got quick players alongside him. They found a system that works, but take nothing away from him or Forest. By this stage of the season, I think you are where you are in the table because you deserve to be there. Yeah. And I think we have to respect him for that.
No, 100%. I think let's look at Chris Woods, because Chris Woods is the player that I think sort of is the underlying. When you talk about how Nuno's got them purring, Chris Woods is that player, and I fully agree with you. I've got nothing but respect for Chris Woods for the job he's done, because you don't stay in the Premier League. Okay, bouncing around different Premier League teams, but you don't stay in the Premier League if you don't have the quality to do that. I think he scored 17 goals this season.
Yeah, 17 goals and 2 assists in 24 games.
Yeah. Typically for him, 16 of those goals have come inside the box and 1 from outside the box, which tells you the type how they're playing football. They're getting the ball out wide and they use him to do what he does best, which is putting the ball in the goal. How many times have we been saying that we've been crying out for a striker who can just put the ball in the back of the net, and he does it so well. I think he scored something. I think that's 60% of his goals are with his right foot, and I think like 30% with his head. He's an impressive striker, and he's playing exceptionally well. And we have strikers that are doing well this season, but we're sort of relying on 2 different strikers to give us the numbers that we're getting. And I think that Nuno's got them playing really, really well, and we have to be really, really wary of that. And I think if we go into the game on Saturday, Chris Woods, for me, he's the player we have to watch out for, because that killer touch of putting the ball in the net, I don't think he's had a season quite like he's had this year. And
sorry, Ash, to cut in there. One of the things that I think Forest do well, and this is something, and I'm back after a couple of weeks, and I'm going to sound like I've never been away with a broken record. One of the things that Forest do well, is they get people close to Woods. We don't. They break with speed, and they've got quick wingers, and they get close to him. And we don't commit like that. Iwobi, who I love, is not a natural winger. He always looks to come inside, but they have wingers in the truest sense of the word. And it helps that when one is breaking down one side of the field, the other one will come in to create an extra attacker. Whereas Fulham don't sell out like that. It's much more slow, much more deliberate. So I think that I would be more confident that we get more goals out of our forwards if we didn't expect them to be running down the channels. I mean, when was the last time you saw Chris Woods on the wing?
Yeah. He doesn't.
But no, exactly, Ash. That's exactly your point. Because he's the focal point. Whereas if you look, I mean, just at our game at Newcastle with Raul, I mean, he was constantly running the width of the field, to pull centre backs out of position. And then when you look at who's in the centre, I mean, boys, you know better than me. Yeah, and what Forest have done is they attack as a unit, and they have people close to Woods. They don't leave him isolated, and it makes him so much more effective. But anyway, sorry.
No, it's absolutely correct. It's a true state of the way we play at the moment, and it's impressive to watch. Let's have a quick look at us. Obviously, we want to look at how we're going to go into this game and effectively sort of counteract that. I think that realistically, we have to be really solid in defence this weekend, and the 2 players obviously that means we're going to have to concentrate on is the 2 defenders that are probably getting the most heat from people at the moment in terms of performances, which is obviously Timmy Castagna and Anderson, in terms of the way that they're playing. Now, I think for Anderson's form, I don't think it's too much of a mad shout to say that his form has gone downhill since Kenny Tete's been out injured, and I think that's mainly been because we have it on the other side of the defence where between Anthony Robertson and Calvin Bassey, where there's an understanding there between the both of them, and they cover a bit for each other when they need to. And I think that there's a bit of hesitation there between Anderson and Castagna in terms of covering for people. And we often see it, and we saw it against Newcastle where, Gordon absolutely destroyed Castagna 3 or 4 times. And then Anderson was in a bit of a panic. He didn't know, he almost didn't, his natural defending head would be to go to the ball and go attack the ball to try to defend it. But he knew he couldn't because the defensive cover that should have been on to the other side of him had already been beaten and had gone through. AJ, when you look at our defence on Saturday and how we can hold firm and hold up, how important is it that Anderson and Castagna have games that are back to the form and the way we know they can play and like compared to how they have been the last couple of weeks?
I think a lot more of it's actually going to rely on Sander Berge. I think he's going to be crucial into dropping between that line and covering for when Castagna goes on a walkabout up the pitch. Castagna is quite good at when he does get up the pitch, probably not with the same sort of delivery as Kenny Tete, but he's still very good at getting up the pitch. The problem he's got is he doesn't have the same sort of positioning and awareness that Kenny Tete does. Kenny Tete knows when to go and when not to go. Castagna seems to get lost sometimes in when to and when not to, and it causes dramas with his positioning and then Anderson's positioning, and then we end up with this gap either between the two of them or between Anderson and Bassey. And I think the instructions on Sander Berge to drop in between the centre backs and control the tempo of the game is going to be very important when we're playing and attacking, when we're playing in the opposition half. If we were in our own box, then it's going to be down to them to basically not cock it up and to have Castagna have a very good game against another set of very, very offensive wingers. I think Anderson and Batty will need to be prioritizing and focusing on keeping Chris Wood out of the game as much as possible. Whenever he's on either one of those two centre backs, they need to be in control of it, and the other one will need to step up. But with that in mind, I think it's going to be resolute and important that the three of those players in Castagna, Anderson, and Sanderberg are all on the same page.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think we've seen this this week already that we're doing well defensively. We are doing well defensively. It's just we're just seeing notices of issues on that right hand side. We've in a week where we've had news come out, obviously that stats people looking into things have seen that uh, that Calvin Bassey is statistically one of the best centre backs in the league at the moment, which is fantastic news for people like me who love the guy. But I think it's also proving to be that it's making the minor mistakes that Anderson's making even more clear. Anderson's not doing a woeful job, and there's no point. I don't think any of us are dramatically sitting there going he needs to be dropped. But when you have someone like Issa Diop on the bench who has every single time he's been asked to step in this season has been superb. You do look at it sometimes and go, well, maybe if these mistakes keep happening, he does need to be dropped for a game, but not because he's woefully bad, but just because I think it's a confidence thing. And I think the next couple of home games are going to be massive in order for building that. The Forest game on Saturday is going to be huge because defensively, if we're going to get anything out of the game on Saturday, doesn't matter what we do going forward. Defensively, we're going to have to be really resolute because they attack and they attack well. And then obviously Palace at home as well is a massive game because it's Palace and Anderson's got history there. So it's one of those ones where, I really hope to see Anderson pull it around and turn it around. And maybe just be because he's not comfortable having Castagna on that right hand side. We've seen that before with players that, they're just some players aren't compatible, but we'll see. Guys, let's end this pod how we always end our previews, and we will look at naming a couple of players from both teams to watch out for, and then a scoreline prediction, please. And we'll go for there. AJ, let's start with you, mate. Give us a player from both teams to watch and a scoreline prediction, please.
I kind of alluded to my player to watch if he gets game time, and that'll be Willian. I think he'll be very important in the fixture, be it towards the end of the game if he gets a 15, 20-minute cameo, or whether or not he starts because of our injuries on the wings at the moment. It'd be interesting to see how he is fitness-wise, but I expect him to have a very important game in trying to break down a defensive low block from Forest. For Forest, I think Chris Wood's going to be a big man to watch, along with probably Morgan Gibbs-White. Those are my two key danger men for us, especially a striker, the likes of Wood at the moment, will show us exactly how it's done, as we've seen with other big, powerful strikers this season in Ipswich striker that Drew's got a liking for in the lap. Score prediction.
I think a lot of clubs have.
Yes, yeah, but to be fair, you can actually hold your hand up and say you had a liking for him before he kicked the ball.
Yeah. Point taken.
When he signed for Ipswich, you were all over that signing and wish we had done it. So I give credit to you for seeing what a valuable asset they had before he had even got up and running. You should be a scout, my friend. No. Score prediction 0-0. Honestly, I don't think there's going to be much in it. I don't think we have the firepower at the moment, and I think keeping a clean sheet is going to be vitally important for us, that we won't overcommit.
That's interesting. Interesting one, that one. How about you, Drew, mate? Give us a couple of players to watch out for and a scoreline prediction, please.
Callum Hudson-Odoi has been out for the last 3 games, although he's been training for the last 2 days. So he may start. But they've still got Alanga, who's quick. And obviously, Alanga will be lining up on the same side, I believe, as... is Alanga right-sided, or is it Eid on the left?
He's on the left. He used to be a left back, then transitioned to left wing.
So he's going to be facing Castagna, who obviously, as we know, had a really tough time on Tyneside, facing a very good left winger. I think I would feel a lot safer if we focused on trying to control the midfield, and that means getting on top of Morgan Gibbs-White and Elliot Anderson. Because Anderson was highly rated coming out of Newcastle, and they only sold him to Forest because they had PSR and FFP considerations. And Gibbs-White has proved to be worth every penny since they've bought him from Wolves. I'm not entirely confident that we're going to be able to shut down their wingers in one-on-one situations. And I say that specifically about Castagna, not so much Robinson, because Robinson still has the pace to outrun his mistakes, but Castagna can struggle. And as Ash has pointed out, it may have a knock-on effect on Anderson. So for that reason, I think their Anderson, Elliot, and Gibbs-White are going to be crucial. I'd feel a lot safer if we won the midfield, because that would cut off the supply line to Wood, who, as good as he is, isn't going to create anything on his own. It's when they get into the final third with their wingers running at us, which is when we're going to have problems. So I would try and restrict that as much as possible. Sorry, go on.
So with that in mind, we think probably our best midfield on paper would be like Berge, Lukic, Kenny, just completely dominate, control of the midfield.
Or I'm just throwing this out there, bring in Iwobi inside.
Yeah, I love that shot.
Bring in Iwobi inside for this one. I mean, I love Tom. I mean, I think he's going to go down in Fulham folklore. But he, like your Willian shout, AJ, he might be featuring at the back end of the game, especially if we're ahead. Because if we're ahead, we know what Silva likes to do. He likes to bring on Kearney and then just play keep ball.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, especially if Forest play with their reputed 3-5-2, that we're going to be in that situation in the first half. So yeah, I mean, I'd be very tempted to try and make the centre of our midfield as strong as possible, and which, I hate to say it, gives me concerns about ESR, because without the ball, we need to be really on it. We need to be really on it, and I'm just not convinced that ESR without the ball is anywhere near as good as ESR with the ball. So that's my shout.
And score prediction?
Scoreline prediction, mate.
Oh, so I think that as low as I am to disagree with AJ, I think there are going to be goals. I don't think we're going to smash them 5-0, but I could see it 2-1 either way.
Yes, I think that's a fair shout. When I'm just going to sweep up and talk about a couple of other players, because I agree with everything both of you have said about, in terms of both squads and what's going on. For me, two of the most important players that are going to be in that game for me on Saturday are Murillo and Morato, who have controlled Forest at the back and their ability to step forward really quickly, really well in the last couple of weeks. And we're talking about how dangerous we know Forest are going forward. They're dangerous players from the back, and they potentially, like we like to see Robertson in transition very quickly on the left. They do it just as well whenever they have the ball as players. So, those two players are going to be very important. If we can keep those players concentrating on their defending rather than they're coming forward, we're doing something right in the game. But for me, I think it's a game where, again, AJ, you're right. The middle of the field is going to be super important on Saturday. It's going to be a big, big game for Lukic and Standerberg, I think, this one. I think both of them are going to have one of their better games of the season, which says a lot for how great they've already been this season. But I think they're both going to have one of their better games of the season in order for us to keep a clean sheet, or at least them to only scoring one goal. But who knows with this Forest team? Because if this Forest team that played Bournemouth, they weren't great against Bournemouth away. As good as Bournemouth are, they were not good at all. But they were so good against Brighton. But then the Brighton game was a bit of a farce, because there was like a 20-minute window where everything that Forest did just ended up in a goal, and it's like they weren't even trying at one point to score. They just were. But we'll see. We'll see with that. Scoreline prediction for me, I don't agree with 0-0. I think for many reasons, I don't see us not making a mistake defensively that Chris Woods won't pounce on, because we just love making mistakes defensively. I'm going to go for 3-2, but I'm not 100% sure which way. I'm not exactly sure which way around. We're either going to win 3-2 or at least lose 3-2. I imagine a close but high-scoring game on Saturday. We'll see when we come to review it on
basically what you're saying
weekend, hopefully.
Basically, what you're saying is none of us could pick between the two teams.
No.
Well, yeah, but that's not. Yeah, I mean, but that's not completely, without reason.
No, it's not. It's completely valid. It's just funny.
Yeah, it's not without reason. We what I fear is a Wolves type game where they have like 3 shots and score 3 goals. Setting aside the fact that day that we looked half asleep, but Forest have got the capacity to do that, have 37% possession, have 3 shots and score 3 goals.
Yeah, Chris Wood has scored 17 goals from a 10 xG, so it just sort of shows that he only needs one opportunity to bag.
And that's what, and as we've said, I mean, AJ's already made the point. We just don't have the players to get into a gunfight, and that's what really concerns me.
Let's be positive, and let's hope for at least at least an entertaining game to watch. You know, we've had our victory against Forest this season, and we're one of the lucky teams to have seen us beat Forest. You know, if they're going to beat us on Saturday, at least let's hope it's an entertaining game to watch rather than one where we're all pulling our hair out because it's absolutely dire and
Yeah.
they just walk all over us, because that will not be an entertaining thing to watch. But we'll see what comes up. Guys, thank you very much for joining me for this preview. We'll see you over the weekend to review the game after we've actually seen the result. Please, everyone, subscribe and like to the channel. Please comment on the videos too. It really does help us in terms of engagement and finding new Fulham fans. Thank you all for everyone who has joined us over the last couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us for this episode. We'll see you on the other side of this weekend, and come on, you Whites.